Hey guys, welcome to your first Play Pause It. So I'm limited to 10 minutes here, so I'm going to have to rush through some of this stuff. Whatever we don't get through today, we'll get through in class. So a couple different types of notation. Set builder, we rarely use the formal form. Usually we just write x is greater than 0. I encourage you to pause me and write things down as I'm saying them. I just don't have time to write them down because, like I said, I'm limited to 10 minutes. So this means all x values such that bar means such that x is greater than 0. So that would be like if I'm describing a number that's positive. Make sure you write that down. The equivalent interval notation, this means they're equivalent, would be from 0 to infinity, not including 0, right? Not including 0, so that's why it's a parenthesis. Another interval notation is like when we're talking about in between. So this would be including 0, but not including 20, and everything in between. So this would be from 0 all the way up to like 19.9999999, repeating forever and ever, but never getting to 20, okay? So let's look at, that's just some background. Let's look at a problem that's similar to a homework problem. This is page 76, number 10. So I'm going to do some and then you're going to do some, so make sure you're paying attention, okay? Question A is asking you for f of 0. This is saying that x equals 0 and it's asking you what is the y value, because remember f of x is equal to y. So this is saying what is the y value. So go to x equals 0, which is on the y-axis, and look and see the point is at 0, 0. So both x and y are 0. A also wants f of 6. So this is saying when x equals 6, what is y? So go over 2, 4, 6 on the x-axis. 6 on the x-axis, the y value is also 0. So now take a second and do B. Okay, we can go over that in class if we need to. Please ask if you need that. Is f of 3 positive or negative? So this is saying f of 3. This is saying the x value is 3. So let's go, oh, wait, 3 is not there. Well, you know where 3 is. 3 is right between 2 and 3. F of 3 is saying the function value. So we need to go down to the graph. F of 3 would be right around there. That has a negative y value. It's below the x-axis. So the answer is negative. So now I want you to do D. And again, we can go over that in class if we need to. Just make sure you ask. For what values of x is f of x equal to 0? So this isn't going to, the answer to E is going to be x values. This is asking when is y equal to 0? Well, that's an x-intercept, right? We talked about this last week. If we haven't gone up or down, then we're on the x-axis. That's a y-intercept. So x is equal to 0 when, y is equal to 0 when x equals 0, when x equals 4, and when x equals 6. You can see that in the ordered pairs and also the fact that they're on the x-axis. So 0, 4, and 6 are the only values when y equals 0. Let's do f together. For what values of x is f of x less than 0? This is saying below the x-axis, less than 0. So here the graph is above, here the graph is below, and here the graph is above. There's no humanly possible way for me to list out all of those x values like I did there, because you might say it's at 0 and 0.1 and 0.2 and 0.3 and 0.4, but then what about 0.11? And what about 0.111? And what about 0.1111? There's no humanly possible way to list them out. So you're like, well, how do I list the answer? You list the answer using interval notation. Starting when x equals 0, going all the way up to x equals 4, the y values are below the x-axis. So from 0 to 4. I don't include 0 and 4, because, for example, when x equals 4, y equals 0, and 0 is not considered positive or negative. The question is asking when are the y values negative. G, domain. What is the domain? Well, the domain is the x values that we see the graph on, right? So from -4 to 6, And I'm including -4 and 6 because they have filled in dots. So I'm going to use interval notation for that. And I want you to do H on your own. Okay. I also want you to do I and J on your own. Okay. Let's look at K together. How often does the line y equals -1 intersect the graph? So first question, y equals -1, is it horizontal or vertical? Okay, so y equals -1 is going to be this line right in here, y equals -1, because that's -2 right there. So how many times is my pen tip crossing the graph? It's crossing twice. I want you to do L on your own. And also M and N. Okay, I have 4 minutes left, so let's look at the next problem. So this is also in your book. You don't have to write all this down. You can just write down the answers and reference the problem and page number. Okay, I'm not going to do A. Is the point 1, 3/5 on the graph? I think you guys can do that on your homework. You're just going to plug the x and the y in and make sure the left and the right are equal. If they're not, then the answer is no. B, if x equals 0, what is f of x and what is the point on the graph? I think you can do that also. Let's look at C. If f of x equals 1/2, remember this is y and this is y right here. So they're asking you just to replace the f of x with a 1/2 and solve. It's saying what is x, so we need to solve for x. So cross multiply. We need to get everything to one side. We have a quadratic. The 4's cancel out, right? Then I need to solve. So I get x equals 0 and x equals 1/2. Now let me go back and make sure I answered the question. It says what point or points are on the graph of f. So it wants an ordered pair for each of those x values. So I'm going to go y equals, right? I'm going to use this equation, and I'm going to plug in a 0 for x. And when I PEMDAS that, I get 1/2. So I plugged in a 0, I got a 1/2 out. And then I'm going to plug a 1/2 in for x. I'm almost out of time. And I'm going to finish with this. I'm going to plug a 1/2 in for x. And I get, what is this, 1/4? So now think about this. I never encourage you to write mixed numbers, but I'm going to write them here during the process of the work. You could probably do this in your head. Instead of trying to give these a common denominator, let's be smart here. This is 2 1/4. This is 4 1/2. So I can turn my mixed number into a improper fraction much easier than I can combine these by giving them a common denominator. This is what, 8, so 9/4, and this is 9/2, right? Wasn't that so much easier? Multiply by the reciprocal and get 1/2. So I plugged in a 1/2 and I got out a 1/2. Okay? I have 1 minute left. Let me see if we need to do domain we talked about yesterday or today. X and Y intercepts we've been doing for a really long time. So I'm going to stop it here. So we will spend some more time on this in class if we need to. We can go over the parts that I asked you to answer on your own, and then you can have some time to work on homework.